That whole first year, when you go back and listen to all my records, really from '06, my voice hoarser than the mother, because I was doing shows and verses every day. I ain't give a I wasn't leaving nothing on the table. And that's still my mentality right now. That's still my mentality right now.
Man, out of all artists, Rick Ross might really have some of the best interviews out there. For those of you who don't know, Rick Ross has been a big name rapper since 2006, and he's actually responsible for creating Maybach Music Group, which has Meek Mill, Wale, Gunplay, and a couple of other artists on it as well. And at the time of recording this video, Rick Ross owns over 25 Wingstop franchises and a couple of others as well. So it's safe to say that when Rick Ross speaks on business, it's something that we should probably listen to. So with all of that said, today we're going to break down Rick Ross's 2 major keys for success and how he attained it.
What is an asset? What is a liability to you? Like, how do you define an asset? How do you define a liability?
I'm going to be honest. I think depending on the role you play and who you are, what's a liability for one brother could be an asset for another. Let's say me owning a private jet, 15 passenger, let's say if it was $5.5 million. For one individual, that could be a liability. But the position I'm in, it could be an asset. And not just based on the money I get of my salary, but the individuals that's around me that I know would also lease this jet when I'm not using it.
Your number one asset was touring, and that got paused. And I feel like you had an epiphany moment when you started actually walking around the property and looking at things you could turn into assets. What was that process like? Because I know you talk about the baseball field that you say, you know what, I could turn this into an amphitheater and have comedians and people tour here. What was that process like for you?
Of course, every time I come through the gates, I say, damn, the homie that owned this previously before me made $50 million a night. 550 million plus came through his hands. What's gonna separate me from the mistakes homie made? And I began going down my mental list. Well, this is what I'm gonna do different.
So to give a little bit of context here, what Rick Ross is talking about is the mansion that he bought in Georgia, which has over 100 rooms, over 44,000 square feet, was actually previously owned by Evander Holyfield. Now, Holyfield ultimately couldn't hold on to that home. There was some financial mishaps, and he ultimately sold it to a bank for pretty cheap, and then Rick Ross turned around and bought it. And what Rick Ross is talking about here is how he's taking this home that was once a liability to one person and trying to figure out, how do I turn this into an asset for myself?
Promised Land pays for itself.
Without a doubt.
You've turned it into an asset. And since you brought up film, obviously we know Superfly was shot here, and we all know that Coming to America 2 was also shot here. What are some other ways that you've used this property as an asset to generate more revenue?
I mean, just from of course, film, different films, videos, visuals, the automobiles, and the list just goes on. The list goes on. You'll be amazed how many offers I get every week for marriages and this and that. Yo, we just want to rent it. How much is it per hour? It's just, we've put it on a platform and in a position where it's just something that people from different countries want to come. How can we experience this?
You know what? It's a really smart idea, because it reminds me of the Versace mansion in Miami, where now people get married there, they have bar mitzvahs there. So it's like, all right, you have this amazing, estate, and now it's actually turned into a tourist destination. People have parties here, and it's like, now, once again, turning the liability into an asset, and now you actually can make money.
Most definitely. Visuals you wouldn't even imagine. The video list could go on and on. From Skip Marley, they was playing soccer. You wouldn't have knew that was on the Promised Land. You know what I'm saying?
It's incredible.
Yeah, it just the list just goes on. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's one thing we're about, good business. Let's keep it simple.
Man, Rick Ross is talking about how he took this house that he bought from somebody that couldn't afford to keep it, and he actually turned it into an asset that pays for itself. The house literally pays for itself because dude is bringing through, he's doing wedding ceremonies, he's doing movies, he's doing music videos, he's having people come and take pictures with the cars. It's really amazing how he branded this place. And for anybody that's followed Rick Ross on social media for a while, You know that he's been posting about the promised land is what he calls this place. He's been posting about it on social media, showing himself driving around his John Deere, cutting the grass, and really showed off the views, the sunsets, all the fancy cars. He concentrated a lot of wealth on this one property, and now he's able to turn it into an asset where it's a tourist destination, kind of like they talked about here. And so when we talk about liabilities, it's really easy for us in the middle class to view certain things as liabilities, right? Like in our minds, a car is a liability, but it's really not. A car can be an asset. It gets you to a job that pays. You can rent out your car on Turo. You can go Uber at lunchtime. You can do a bunch of different things with these different liabilities in your life. So it's really cool to see Rick Ross kind of say, look, man, like a lot of these things that we view as liabilities, if you just get smart with it, you can turn it into an asset. And he also uses an example with yachts here and talks about how he owned 2 yachts and they were a big liability for him for a while because he would just come out there and hop on his yachts once in a while between gigs, between shows, between making albums. But he really wasn't getting a lot of use out of these yachts, and so the upkeep was so much and he was barely using it. But he talks about how now he rents out those yachts through a company, and now he actually makes monthly revenue on those yachts to where they pay for themselves. They've now become an asset. And this is a little bit off topic, but I'm just going to throw this in here, is I've actually heard of people doing that with jet skis. Apparently people go and buy jet skis for a few $1,000 because it's pretty cheap, and then they go run up jet ski sales, especially in places like Miami where it's always jet ski weather, whatever, California, they go and run up jet ski sales. There's definitely a lot of money to be made from renting out your liabilities or turning your liabilities into assets.
So when you talk about your mom, your sister, your friends, how I envision this is like a corporate structure.
Most definitely.
And it's like the
The
CEO,
empire.
the CFO, the COO, and it's like a lot of things don't necessarily have to get to the CEO.
Why not? Right, exactly.
So talk about that.
Exactly.
You know, how did you envision that? And am I correct? That's how you kind of look at it, like a
Most
corporate
definitely,
structure?
most definitely, and that's the only way I could see me having 20 current partnerships without any stress, without being burnt out, actually looking forward to this shit. You understand? And how can I do that? It's because the small talk shouldn't make it to the boss. You should have somebody on your team that's so hungry that shit ain't gonna even get past them. Of course they gonna check in and run it by you because that's what you do out of respect for the boss, but you already know what the play is.
What Rick Ross is talking about here is the importance of having and keeping a strong team around you as a leader. And the fact of the matter is, whether you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company or you're somebody who just sits on the couch and watches Netflix all day, everybody only has 24 hours in a day. You can only get so much done. So if you really want to be an elite business leader and somebody that makes the most of their time, you got to figure out, how do I incentivize people to come join my team? How do I find the right people and put them in positions to help me and to help them? And in this clip, Rick Ross uses the example of how he has over 20 business partnerships, but he doesn't feel any sort of burnout at all. Why is that? What he's basically saying here is he uses his team as a filter. He uses them as a way to filter out a lot of the basic stuff that should be handled by somebody else, and then he can come over and say, look, I'm Rick Ross, I'm the brand presence, and he can take care of the more bigger issues. Let other people kind of work out those smaller issues.
Everything I've done as a boss in that MMG, man, I enjoy it. And I'm proud of it. Most definitely. Meek Mill, Wale, just the whole team, Gunplay, all my squad. Because all my homies can still be creative based on their time frame. I give everybody their freedom to do whatever the play is you want to do. You your own boss. You know what I mean? Even in this partnership, you your boss. Whatever it is, let's go. I'm going to support what your vision is.
And in what Rick Ross just said right there, there's 2 fundamental pieces of wisdom. The first is that when you're building and keeping a team, you have to give people freedom. You have to give people the ability to create what they want to create and to work how they work. I mean, just in my personal life, I've had managers that are micromanagers, and nobody works hard for a micromanager. The fact of the matter is, when you micromanage, everybody just feels jaded and they don't want to be around you. You're not going to get the most out of that person when they can't operate in the way that makes sense to their brain. What he's saying here is that when he's the record executive for MMG, when he's taking care of Meek Mill's career, Wale, whoever it may be, he gives them the ability to create freely, the ability to be themselves, and he just steps back and says, how can I help you with your vision? Now that's the second piece to this. This is actually talked about in this book here, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is that you should be interested in what somebody else wants for themselves. When you're interested in somebody else and what they want to achieve, That's going to create a better relationship to where you're going to have better business opportunities. And when you help them to get where they want to go, you're going to be next to somebody that's at a higher level. So when Rick Ross is saying, I want to help you achieve what you want to achieve here, that is a fundamental piece to building a team, is to not only say, I want this out of my team, I want to get this done, but what do you want and how can I help you get there? It's a synergetic relationship. Instead of just a take, like a lot of bosses do, he's saying, how can I give and get back? There's a big fundamental difference in that, and I think that that's something that probably is one of the reasons why Rick Ross is a great boss and is a great leader of his team. And part of the reason why he's worth 8, 9 figures, maybe even $1 billion. Who knows how much Rick Ross is worth? But this guy is an absolute killer, and this is one of the reasons why.
Do you think about stuff like, do you have like people that's accountants, watching accountants? Like, how do you make sure that that doesn't happen?
You don't really need accountants watching accountants. You just need the right one. Too many motherfuckers watching motherfuckers. You expecting problems. I ain't gonna do that. Once you've been put in position, you're liable and you will be held accountable, and you're responsible for your job that you're getting compensated for.
This goes back to that micromanagement point from earlier, but what it really boils down to is trust. Are you going to be a boss? Are you going to be a manager that allows their people to be free and that trusts them to get the job done, the work that they're responsible for? Or are you going to be somebody that tries to micromanage and doesn't trust how they should? What Rick Ross is saying here is part of the way that I keep my team, part of the way that my team runs so effectively is I put the people that I believe in position, and then I trust them. That's something that is almost word for word from a Gary Vee video, which is how you know it's true. If you've got two people that are very different in very different spaces in life saying the same thing, trust people and put them in positions to win, and then allow them to do the work that you trust them to do. Don't micromanage. Then you know there's got to be some truth to it.
It should be a goal. It's not just about the paper. It's something I always speak on. I walked away from seven figures up front for a cigarette campaign. I told them I don't smoke squares, homie. I can't help you on that. Well, we don't need you to smoke them. I can't do it, homie.